What's up, nerds? This is the first in a series of tutorials about Bootstrap. So Bootstrap is a great way to limit the amount of CSS that you're writing while still including cool components and having great layouts and great responsive web design. Okay, so in this tutorial, I've provided a boilerplate, a starting point for you. I'll put the link in the description, but here it is. You just log into your REPL account, you go to this URL, you click fork, copy it into your account, and you'll be ready to go. So I have already done that, and I've got a little REPL going here called Bootstrap Layout, and we're going to be talking a little bit today about how layout works in Bootstrap. So we'll be covering breakpoints, containers, rows, and columns. Containers, rows, and columns being the three necessary things to build a layout that's going to look something like this. So first thing to do is we're going to go to the documentation for Bootstrap. Get bootstrap.com/doc/4.4. Link in the description. Boom, there it is. Okay, so we've already done getting started. Took care of that in the boilerplate. We're going to go to Layout, Overview. Here it is. So first of all, you should know that Bootstrap's got breakpoints. So breakpoints have to do with like media queries and CSS, if you're familiar with those, min width and max width. At this screen size, we're going to behave some way. At this screen size, we're going to behave a different way. So you have extra small screens, mobile devices, small and medium screens like tablets, and then large and extra large desktops, and even up to 4K TVs in some cases. So the first thing that we're going to use in our layout is called a container. And at different breakpoints, at different screen sizes, it's going to behave a little bit differently. So at extra small screens for like mobile devices, you're going to have 100% of the width. But then once you get up to small, medium, large, etc., you're going to have a max width on your container. So an example of this that I thought of is Facebook. Okay, so you see at Facebook, on the sides, there's a bit of margin here. There's a bit of space. It's like on your paper that you write at school. You got 8.5 by 11 paper, 1-inch margins, right? It's easy on the eyes. It's adjustable for bigger screens, smaller screens. You can see all the content that you need to on the website. Okay, so there's container small, medium, large, extra large, fluid. You can see that at the different breakpoints, each of these behave differently. Today we're just going to be using the plain Jane container that behaves this way at these breakpoints. And I'll show you what that looks like visually. So this container is a CSS class that we're going to include in our HTML with a div here. Div class equals container. And then let's close that div up. And then let's add a bit of style here, inline style, to make things fast. I'm going to add some height so that you can see the container even though there's not any content inside of the div here. And we'll add a background. Let's do the primary color, blue. Wonderful. Okay, so you can see that in this small screen representation of what's going on, takes up 100% width. But when you go to a big screen, there's that white margin on the side. And as you adjust the screen, you can see that margin changes at each breakpoint for extra small, medium, and large, and stuff like that. So that's the container right there. Okay, next inside the container, we're going to have some rows. So that's the blue boxes that I have here in this wonderful MS Paint diagram that I made a few minutes ago. So let's look at the documentation here about rows. I'm at layout, grid system going on. So rows are basically the container for columns. Okay, so you know in HTML things load from top to bottom. We're going to have rows, and then we'll have columns inside of those rows. So let's go ahead and add a couple of divs inside this container that are rows. Class equals row. And then style height equal, we'll just do like, I don't know, 20%. You can see that the row will take up about 1/5 of the screen vertically. And we'll make this background white. So you can see that the row takes up 20% of the screen. See it on a big screen. There's that row right there. I don't know why I picked white. It kind of blends in with the margin. Whatever. It's good. Okay. So now that we know what rows do, we're going to have columns inside of our rows. So the rows are necessary because they include some flexbox CSS properties that are necessary for the columns to line up properly going across the page. So you need rows before you have columns always, okay? So let's go ahead and add a big column going across. So we can add class equals col for a column. This is just the default plain Jane column. I'm going to go into detail a little bit about what each of these columns do. Let's add a background color. Success, background success is green. Boom, there it is. So you can see that that column just took up the whole space that the row had because I didn't add anything onto it. But if you go to the documentation, you can see that if you do column dash small, then it's going to behave differently on small breakpoints as opposed to bigger ones. So once you get down to small screen sizes, those columns start stacking up on top of each other. So for responsive web design, you're going to want columns that go across for bigger screens and then that stack on top of each other for smaller screens. And this is one great tool that people use Bootstrap for, is the grid system that it comes with that is automatically responsive. So let's go ahead and add a few more rows and a few more columns. So in this row, we're going to have 3 columns to replicate what I've got going on here. And in this row, we will also have 3 columns. And then we'll just say like column 1, column 2, add a little bit of text in here. Column, spelling, column 3. And I'll just copy and paste this in place of those down here. And let's see what happens. Okay, so we've got that first row on top. We've got column 1, 2, 3, column 1, 2, 3. And then as I make the screen smaller, those columns, you'll notice, just stay there. But let's say I wanted my columns to start stacking once I get to a medium screen size or a large screen size. So I'm going to add a few in here just so you can see what happens. We'll have column medium, column large, column medium, and then some maybe some column smalls down here. And we'll change these numbers here so that you can see the difference. 4, 5, and 6 now at the bottom. Okay, so at a small screen size, you can see that they all stack up automatically. Now we're getting to a medium screen size, and you can see that container adding the white space on the side, and column 4, 5, and 6, because they're columns small, they go side by side now. And then once we get more to like a larger screen size, then those other columns start going side by side. Okay, so you can play around with that. Column medium, column large, column small, extra large, etc. to see how it's going. Okay, so now we got to replicate the picture that I have. So we'll do column medium across the board. That way they stack on top of each other on mobile devices and I can still have good content otherwise. Okay. So that's pretty much it to Bootstrap Grid, the grid system in Bootstrap. So go read the documentation, try a few things out, try out some examples. There's some more things that I haven't gone into here about like mixing regular columns and columns with numbers. You'll see all that in the documentation. Okay, so happy coding.